The scanning beams swept across the gray surface of Titan 7 for the third time that week. Deep in the command chamber of the warship Eternal Dominance, Fleet Commander Zartok watched the data scroll across his display screens. His 4 eyes narrowed with satisfaction. Everything matched what his intelligence officers had promised. The human outpost sat in a shallow crater, its domed structures barely visible against the rocky terrain. Power readings were low. The sensor array looked like an old commercial model, the kind mining companies used. There were no battleship signatures in orbit, no fighter patrols, no orbital defense platforms, just one small facility with maybe 200 humans inside, doing whatever humans did on these remote moons. "Commander, the tactical analysis is complete," his second officer reported. The younger Krell's skin rippled with barely contained excitement. "Defense rating is minimal. Single shield generator, civilian grade. 4 small turrets that appear to be for asteroid defense only. The communication array uses outdated encryption. We could jam it easily." Zartok nodded slowly. The Krell Dominion had been watching humanity for 6 cycles now, ever since these strange 2-legged creatures had pushed beyond their home system. The Dominion's borders had been expanding for 300 years. They had conquered 17 species. They understood war. They understood power. And they understood that you tested an enemy's strength before committing to full invasion. This outpost was perfect for that test. "How long until the Earth military could respond?" Zartok asked. His intelligence officer pulled up a star chart. "Their nearest battle group is stationed at Europa. That's 4 days away at their fastest speeds. Their patrol ships in the outer system could arrive in maybe 30 hours, but those are small vessels, nothing that could threaten our task force." "And you're certain this facility has no unusual strategic value?" "Our information indicates it's a research station, Commander, probably studying the moon's geology or doing some kind of scientific work. The human databases we accessed listed as Training Facility Echo 9, but we believe that's a cover designation. Research stations often use military-sounding names for funding purposes." Zartok stood from his command chair. His full height made the other Krell step back slightly. He had led successful campaigns on 4 worlds. He knew how to read a tactical situation. This outpost was isolated, poorly defended, and insignificant enough that Earth wouldn't escalate to full war over its loss. They would respond, yes, but it would be measured, cautious. That response would tell the Dominion everything they needed to know about human military capabilities. "Assemble the task force," he ordered. 3 destroyers and the full carrier wing. We'll overwhelm them immediately. I want this done quickly and cleanly." "That's substantial force for such a small target, Commander," the second officer observed. "We're sending a message," Zartok replied. "The message is that we can strike wherever we choose, with whatever force we choose. The humans need to understand what they face." Over the next 2 hours, the Krell task force assembled in the dark space beyond Titan 7's orbit. 3 warships, each twice the length of Earth's largest cruisers, 40 fighter craft, 200 Krell warriors in boarding pods, ready to seize the facility once the shields fell. It was enough firepower to reduce a small city to ash. The Eternal Dominance ran final system checks, weapons charged, shields at maximum. The other 2 destroyers, Sharp Talon and Worldbreaker, reported ready status. The fighter wings completed their pre-combat rituals. Zartok studied the target one more time. The outpost sat there in its crater, lights glowing softly in the airless dark. A few small vehicles moved on the surface. He could see human figures in pressure suits going about their duties. They had no idea what was about to happen. No idea that in moments, their quiet research station would become a battlefield. "All ships," he broadcast across the command network, "commence attack on my mark. Target their power generation first, then communications. I want them blind and helpless before we begin boarding operations. No warnings, no negotiations. We are here to demonstrate Dominion strength. His finger hovered over the control that would start the attack. For just a moment, he wondered if he was making a mistake. The humans were strange. Their history files showed a species that fought among themselves constantly, yet somehow held together when threatened from outside. They had survived planetary wars, environmental collapse, and civil conflicts that should have destroyed them. But they were also young. So young. They had been in space for barely 200 years. The Dominion had been traveling the stars for millennia. Experience mattered in war, technology mattered, and the Dominion had both in abundance. Target lock confirmed on all primary systems, his weapons officer reported. Zartok's doubts faded. This was necessary. The Dominion needed to expand, and humanity's systems were rich with resources. Better to establish dominance now, while the humans were still scattered and developing. Better to make them submit before they became a real threat. "Fire!" he commanded. The three destroyers unleashed their opening salvo. Energy beams lanced through space, crossing the distance to the outpost in seconds. Missiles followed, their drives burning bright against the darkness. The fighter wings accelerated toward the target, ready to exploit whatever breach the main guns created. Zartok watched the tactical display, waiting for the satisfying sight of the outpost's shields collapsing and its power grid going dark. Instead, something else happened. The outpost's shields flared brilliant blue, not the weak flicker of civilian protection, but the blazing wall of military-grade defense. The energy beams scattered across the barrier, absorbed and redirected. The missiles detonated against the shields, creating spectacular explosions that did exactly nothing. And then the moon itself seemed to wake up. Hatches opened across the crater floor. Gun platforms rose from concealed positions in the rock. The outdated sensor array suddenly painted his entire task force with active targeting locks so precise that alarms screamed across every Krell ship. The outpost's communication array, which should have been destroyed in the first strike, broadcast a simple message in clear human language. "Hostile targets acquired. All defensive systems live. Engage at will." Zartok felt his blood run cold as return fire began to reach toward his ships. Commander Sarah Chen was in the middle of her morning coffee when the attack began. The alerts came through her command tablet first, then the facility-wide speakers, then the flashing red lights that turned the operations center into a scene from an action movie. "Contact! Contact! Contact!" Lieutenant Morrison shouted from the sensor station. 3 capital ships dropping out of FTL at Grid 77 Alpha, weapons hot, missiles inbound. Sarah set down her coffee carefully. She had run this drill 40 times. She knew every step. The important thing was to stay calm and execute the procedures exactly as trained. Her instructors would be watching, grading every decision. "Sound general quarters," she ordered. "Bring defensive systems online. Launch alert fighters. Someone get me a damage assessment as those missiles hit." The operations center transformed into controlled chaos. 60 officers and specialists moved to their stations. Screens lit up across the walls showing the tactical situation. The 3 enemy ships, marked in red, surrounded the facility in a classic attack formation. It was good work by whoever had programmed this scenario. "Shields at maximum," the defensive coordinator reported. "All gun batteries responding. Counter-missile systems tracking." Sarah pulled up the exercise briefing on her command screen. Operation Blindside, Day 3. Today's scenario was supposed to involve a moderate raid by pirate forces. But this looked bigger. 3 capital ships? That was serious. Maybe Command had decided to increase the difficulty without warning. They did that sometimes to test how officers handled surprises. "Fighter Wing Alpha, you are clear for launch," she transmitted to the pilots waiting in the hangar bay. "This is a hot scenario, people. Treat it as real." In the underground hangar, Lieutenant Marcus Webb climbed into his fighter's cockpit. The crews were already releasing the docking clamps. Marcus had been flying combat simulations for 6 years, but he still felt the spike of adrenaline as his engines powered up. These training exercises used live weapons with reduced yields, real shields, and actual maneuvering. The danger was limited but not zero. People had died in training before. Griffin Wing, this is Griffin Lead, he transmitted to his squadron. We've got 3 bogies in high orbit. Flight patterns suggest Krell design. Nice touch by the programmers. Formation Delta on my mark. Remember to log targeting data for the after-action review. His fighter launched through the magnetic catapult, acceleration pressing him back into his seat. The airless surface of Titan 7 blurred past. Then he was climbing toward the black sky where the enemy ships waited. The tactical display in his cockpit showed the situation clearly. The 3 capital ships were holding position at medium range, pouring fire into the facility's shields. Their fighter screen was deploying now, small craft spreading into an attack formation. Marcus counted 40 contacts. That was ambitious for a training scenario. Griffin Wing, engage enemy fighters. Watch your spacing. Call out targeting solutions. The 2 forces met in the space above Titan 7 in a storm of laser fire and missile trails. Marcus's fighter twisted and rolled through the engagement, his targeting computer acquiring locks on the simulated enemy craft. These drones were good, better than the usual training units. They moved with realistic aggression and used proper Krell tactical doctrine. He fired a burst at an enemy fighter, saw his shots connect, watched it tumble away, trailing atmosphere. Part of his mind noted that the explosion looked extremely realistic. The effects budget for this exercise must have been substantial. On the ground, Master Sergeant Anna Kowalski was having similar thoughts as she directed the defense of the facility's outer sections. The attack had come right during the shift change, catching half her security teams in the mess hall. That was good scenario design. In real combat, the enemy never waited for you to be ready. Section 4, seal those blast doors, she ordered over the tactical network. Section 7, I need a gun team on the east airlock now. Move like you mean it. Her soldiers responded with practiced efficiency. These were instructors and advanced students from Earth's Special Operations School. They had trained in environments ranging from Arctic warfare to zero-gravity combat. A defensive scenario in a moon base was practically routine. The first indication that something was wrong came when her sensor tech reported energy signatures that didn't match the standard training profiles. Sergeant, I'm getting weird readings on these incoming boarding pods. The power output is way higher than exercise equipment, and the mass readings suggest they're carrying actual Krell combat troops, not drones. Anna frowned. Run a diagnostic on your sensors. Might be a software glitch. But then the first boarding pod hit the outer hull, and the cutting torches began to slice through the reinforced airlock door. Anna watched through the security cameras as the door fell inward and actual Krell warriors stormed through, their armor gleaming, their weapons raised. They looked perfect. Too perfect. The detail on their equipment, the way they moved, the slight differences in size and coloring between individuals. This wasn't simulation technology. This was something else. All teams, weapons free, she transmitted, her voice carefully calm. Execute defensive plan, Charlie. And someone get me a line to Commander Chen. I think we might have a situation. In orbit, Zartok was experiencing his own moment of doubt. His task force had been fighting for 15 minutes, and nothing was going according to plan. The Outpost's shields were still at 80%. His fighters had lost 12 craft to the human pilots, who flew with a precision that suggested extensive combat experience. The gun batteries on the surface were tracking his destroyers with uncomfortable accuracy. Commander, the humans are broadcasting on multiple frequencies, his communications officer reported. They seem to be grading themselves. What? They're discussing tactical performance, training objectives, and something called exercise parameters. I don't understand it. Zartok listened to the translated transmissions. Human pilots calling out their own mistakes, ground troops critiquing their response times, officers discussing how this scenario compared to previous drills. A cold feeling settled in his chest. He pulled up the intelligence files on Training Facility Echo 9. His staff had dismissed the designation as a cover story. But what if it wasn't? "Get me everything we have on human military training procedures," he ordered. "Now!" On the surface, Sarah Chen was having a very similar realization. She stood in the operations center, watching live video feeds of actual Krell soldiers fighting her security teams in the outer corridors. Real aliens, real weapons, real casualties. "Lieutenant Morrison," she said quietly, "contact Fleet Command on the emergency channel. Tell them we are under actual attack by hostile forces. This is not a drill." "Repeat, this is not a drill." Morrison's face went pale. "Ma'am, if this isn't a drill, then we just started a war," Sarah finished. "And we need reinforcements. But until they arrive, we do our jobs. We hold this facility. Every person here is trained for exactly this situation. The only difference is that now it counts." She activated the facility-wide intercom. "All personnel, this is Commander Chen. Be advised, we are engaged with actual hostile forces. This is not an exercise. I repeat, this is not an exercise. All training protocols are suspended. Rules of engagement are now live combat standards. Hold your positions, trust your training, and show these bastards what Earth's military can do." In the corridors, in the fighter cockpits, across every defensive position, the human forces received the message. The realization spread like electricity through the facility. This was real, and they were ready. The battle transformed in the moments after Commander Chen's announcement. What had been a training exercise with soldiers pulling their punches became something entirely different. The humans stopped treating it like a test and started fighting like their lives depended on it, because now they did. In Section 7, Anna Kowalski crouched behind a reinforced barrier as plasma fire scorched the air above her head. 3 Krell warriors were advancing down the corridor, their shields absorbing fire from her defensive positions. She had 14 soldiers under her command in this sector, a mix of instructors and senior students. "Thompson, flank left through the service tunnel," she ordered. "Rivas, suppressing fire on my mark. Everyone else, hold position and wait for my signal." The Krell were good. She could see that immediately. They moved with discipline, covering each other's advances, using their superior strength and armor effectively. But they were fighting in a facility specifically designed for defensive combat, against humans who had spent months learning every corridor, every angle, every tactical advantage built into the architecture. Thompson's squad emerged from the service tunnel behind the Krell position. The aliens' rear armor was lighter than their front plating, a weakness that every human soldier in the facility had memorized from their tactical briefings. The ambush was devastating. 2 Krell went down immediately. The 3rd managed to turn and fire, but Anna's main force was already advancing, catching the warrior in a crossfire. "Sector 7 secure," Anna reported. 3 hostiles neutralized, no friendly casualties, sealing this section and moving to reinforce Sector 4. As her team moved through the corridors, she passed a training classroom where just yesterday she had been teaching close-quarters combat techniques. The irony wasn't lost on her. They had practiced this exact scenario 100 times. The only difference now was that the enemy wasn't playing by safety protocols. Above the facility, Marcus Webb was discovering the same thing. The Krell fighters were superior to his training craft in almost every way. Faster engines, heavier weapons, stronger shields. But Marcus and his pilots had something the Krell didn't expect. They had trained against simulations of Krell fighters for years. "Griffin 3, break left." "Now!" Marcus shouted into his comm. The pilot obeyed instantly, and a Krell missile screamed through the space where his fighter had been a second before. "Griffin lead, this is Griffin 6. I've got 2 on my tail and shields are at 30%. Copy that, 6. Griffin 2 and 5 execute intercept pattern Delta 7. Let's show them the pincer. The maneuver was one they had practiced countless times. Two fighters would approach from perpendicular angles, forcing the enemy to choose which threat to face. Either way, they would expose themselves to fire from one direction. The Krell pilots tried to evade, but Marcus was ready for that too. He had studied Krell tactical doctrine. He knew their preferred escape vectors. His targeting computer acquired a solid lock. He fired. The Krell fighter exploded in a brilliant flash of superheated metal. "Splash 1, he reported, already scanning for his next target. "Griffin wing, sound off. Griffin 2, shields at 60, weapons green. Griffin 3, I'm hit but still flying. One engine out. Griffin 4, operational." They had lost 3 fighters in the opening engagement, but the Krell had lost 15. The math was brutal but simple. The human pilots were better, not because they had superior ships or natural advantages. They were better because they had trained harder, longer, and with more realistic scenarios than the Krell could have imagined. In the command center, Sarah Chen monitored the battle across multiple fronts. The tactical displays showed a confused mess of combat, but patterns were emerging. The Krell were pressing hard but taking heavy casualties. Their boarding teams were being systematically destroyed in the facility's corridors. Their fighter screen was losing cohesion. Their capital ships were pulling back to longer range as the surface guns found their targeting solutions. "Commander, we're receiving transmissions from the lead Krell ship," Morrison reported. "They're on military frequencies. It sounds like they're analyzing our communications." Sarah pulled on her headset and listened to the intercepts. The Krell were confused. She could hear it in their transmissions. They were trying to understand why the humans kept referring to training protocols, exercise objectives, and scenario parameters. A terrible suspicion formed in her mind. "Morrison, pull up our facility designation in the public databases." "What exactly does it say?" Morrison typed quickly. "Training Facility Echo 9, established 2183, purpose listed as Advanced Combat Training and Tactical Development. Annual budget of..." "Oh, God. Commander, our annual budget is larger than most planetary defense forces." "They didn't know," Sarah said softly. "They thought we were a research station. They attacked what they thought was a soft target, and instead they hit a military training facility." That's almost funny, ma'am." "It would be if people weren't dying. Get me a secure line to the Krell flagship. I think we need to have a conversation before this gets even worse." On the Eternal Dominance, Zartok was receiving the same information from his intelligence officers, and he was not finding it funny at all. "Explain to me again," he said, his voice dangerously quiet, "how we attacked a military training facility believing it was a civilian research station." The intelligence officer's skin had gone pale. "Commander, our information indicated minimal defenses. The power readings, the sensor profiles, everything suggested a low-priority target." Everything was wrong. Zartok stared at the tactical display. His task force had lost 18 fighters, suffered damage to all 3 capital ships, and had exactly 0 successful boarding parties still operational. "These humans fight like elite soldiers." "Commander, they are elite soldiers. We've identified at least 3 special operations training cadres on the station. The pilots are instructor level. The facility itself is designed as a realistic combat training environment." Zartok felt a sensation he hadn't experienced in many years. Genuine fear. Not fear of dying in this particular battle, though that was now a real possibility. Fear of what this meant for the Dominion's plans. "If this is how they train," he said slowly, "what are their actual combat units like?" No one had an answer. "Commander, the humans are hailing us," the communications officer reported. "Put it through." A human female appeared on the display. She looked tired but composed, standing in what was clearly a military command center. Behind her, Zartok could see tactical screens showing the battle in progress. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Solar Defense Force Training Command," she said in clear Standard Galactic. "I am authorized to negotiate a ceasefire. Am I addressing the Krell commander?" "I am Fleet Commander Zartok of the Eternal Dominance," he replied. "You speak our language?" "We study all known species as part of our training curriculum," Chen said. "Commander Zartok, I believe there has been a significant misunderstanding. Are you aware that you have attacked a military training facility?" "I am becoming aware of that, yes." "Then you should also be aware that you are currently fighting approximately 200 soldiers, most of whom are students or instructors in various stages of their training certification. This facility represents a tiny fraction of Earth's military capability." Zartok's blood ran colder. "I see. I have contacted my superiors. A full battle group is currently accelerating toward this location. They will arrive in approximately 18 hours. I am prepared to arrange a ceasefire if you are willing to withdraw your forces." "And if I refuse?" Chen's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes made Zartok uncomfortable. "Then my students will get a very realistic final examination, and you will get to find out exactly how effective human military training really is. I will note that we are currently winning this engagement despite being significantly outnumbered and outgunned." She was right. Zartok knew it. His officers knew it. The question was whether his pride would let him admit it. "I will consider your offer," he said finally. "You have 1 hour," Chen replied. "After that, I give my soldiers permission to stop holding back." The transmission ended. "Holding back?" Zartok's second officer said. "Commander, they've been holding back?" Zartok thought about the human transmissions his crew had intercepted, soldiers critiquing their own performances, pilots calling out their tactical errors, officers discussing how to improve their response times. They had been treating this entire battle as a learning experience. "What have we done?" he whispered. The ceasefire came 43 minutes later. Zartok's task force pulled back to a safe distance while both sides collected their wounded and assessed the damage. In that strange, quiet period between combat and whatever came next, the true absurdity of the situation began to reveal itself. It started with a Krell boarding party that had managed to cut off and capture a human squad in one of the outer storage sections. Squad leader Kowalski had ordered the team to surrender rather than fight to the death in a hopeless position. Her soldiers had complied, throwing down their weapons and raising their hands as the Krell warriors surrounded them. The Krell's strike commander, a veteran named Throck, had prepared for interrogation. He expected fear, defiance, or perhaps attempts at negotiation. What he got instead was completely unexpected. "That was really well executed," Sergeant David Harrison said as the Krell zip-tied his hands. "The breach and clear was textbook. We should have anticipated your approach vector better." Throck stared at the human. "You are prisoners. You will provide information about Earth's defenses." "Oh, absolutely," Harrison agreed. "Though honestly, you guys probably know more about our outer system deployments than we do. We're just trainers. But I've got to say, the realism on this exercise is incredible. How did you guys get the Krell armor so accurate? Is that actual manufactured material or some kind of composite?" One of the other human prisoners leaned forward, studying Throck's equipment with obvious interest. "And the weapons. The plasma discharge rate looks exactly like the specifications in our tactical manuals. Did Command finally spring for proper training equipment?" Throck looked at his fellow warriors. They looked back at him with equal confusion. "You believe this is training?" Throck asked slowly. "Well, yeah," Harrison said. "I mean, it's day 3 of Operation Blindside. This is pretty elaborate even for a major exercise, but Command has been promising more realistic scenarios. The casualty effects are maybe a bit much, but I guess that's why we signed the waivers." "Your soldiers died," Throck said, speaking very carefully. This is real combat. We are actual Krell warriors. This is not a simulation. Harrison's smile faded. Wait, what? We are the Krell Dominion. We attacked your facility believing it to be a research station. We intended to kill you all and claim this moon for our empire. The humans stared at him in stunned silence. Then one of them started laughing. It was a slightly hysterical sound. You're serious, Harrison said. You actually attacked us. Like for real attacked us. Yes. And you thought we were a research station. Our intelligence indicated minimal defenses. Harrison's expression cycled through several emotions before settling on something between disbelief and dark amusement. Buddy, this is Training Facility Echo 9. We run combat exercises here 50 weeks a year. The entire facility is basically a fortified military base designed to simulate every kind of warfare scenario imaginable. You couldn't have picked a worse target if you tried. Throck felt something he rarely experienced. Embarrassment. We did not know this. Clearly. Harrison shook his head. Man, your intelligence people are going to be in so much trouble. How many ships did you bring? That is classified military information. 3 destroyers and a fighter carrier, right? We tracked your approach. That's actually pretty good force composition for hitting a real research station. But for a training facility full of elite soldiers? Harrison whistled. You guys are lucky we didn't have our orbital defense platforms active. Those are usually offline during exercises because they're way too dangerous. Another human prisoner spoke up, a young woman with corporal stripes. Can I ask you something? Why attack us at all? We've never had any hostile contact with the Krell Dominion. Throck considered not answering, but the situation was so far beyond normal military protocols that normal rules seemed pointless. The Dominion has been expanding for centuries. Your species occupies systems we want. We chose to test your military response before planning a larger invasion. By attacking a military training facility, Harrison said flatly. Yes. And now you know exactly how we train our soldiers, what our defensive capabilities look like, and how we respond to surprise attacks. Throck's chest tightened. Yes. That's got to be the worst intelligence failure I've ever heard of, Harrison said. No offense, but your commanders are idiots. On the Eternal Dominance, Zartok was receiving a transmission from his intelligence team and coming to the same conclusion. They had finally accessed the full human data networks and discovered exactly what Training Facility Echo 9 really was. Commander, this facility is one of 12 primary training installations in Earth's outer system, his intelligence chief reported. Each one runs continuous combat drills for approximately 2,000 soldiers per year. The humans rotate their military personnel through these facilities for advanced tactical training. 2,000 per facility, Zartok calculated, times 12 facilities. That's 24,000 elite soldiers trained annually. And that's just the advanced training programs, Commander. They have basic training facilities on Earth and Mars that process hundreds of thousands of recruits every year. Their total active military force is estimated at nearly 5 million, with another 20 million in reserve status. The numbers were staggering. The Krell Dominion's entire military force numbered perhaps 3 million warriors. They had assumed humanity's numbers would be smaller, their training less rigorous, their readiness lower. Show me the analysis of the humans we fought today, Zartok ordered. The tactical breakdown appeared on his screen. His officers had been reviewing the combat footage and intercepted communications. What they found was disturbing. The human defenders had been critiquing their own performance throughout the battle, not just at the strategic level, but individual soldiers analyzing their tactical decisions in real time. They treated combat as a learning experience, constantly adapting and improving. Even while under fire, they had been coaching each other, correcting mistakes, and optimizing their responses. More frightening was the revelation that many of the humans fighting today were instructors, Not frontline soldiers, but the people who trained frontline soldiers. They were older, more experienced, and fought with a calm efficiency that spoke of countless hours of practice. "Commander Chen is hailing us again," the communications officer announced. Jartok straightened in his command chair. "Put her through." Commander Chen appeared on the screen. She looked even more tired than before, but there was something else in her expression now. Understanding, perhaps, or pity. "Commander Jartok," she said, "I've spoken with my superiors. They want me to arrange your unconditional surrender." "That is unacceptable." "I told them you would say that, so I've negotiated an alternative. You withdraw your forces immediately. We exchange prisoners. You leave this system and do not return. In exchange, we don't hunt down your task force and destroy it." "You believe you could do so?" Chen gestured to something off-screen. The EDS battle group arrived 2 hours early. They used emergency acceleration protocols. There are currently 6 battle cruisers, 15 destroyers, and 2 carrier groups in this system. "They are very unhappy about what happened here today." Jartok felt the deck shift slightly as his ship's sensors registered the new arrivals. His tactical officer confirmed Chen's statement with a grim nod. "I could have let them simply attack you," Chen continued, "but I convinced them that you didn't know what you were hitting, that this was a massive intelligence failure rather than a deliberate act of war. Was I right to do so, Commander?" It was a way out. A humiliating way out, but better than death. "You were correct," Jartok said. "We believe this facility to be a civilian target." "Then we have an agreement?" Jartok looked at his senior officers. They all nodded. "Pride was worthless if you were dead." "We will withdraw," he said. "But Commander Chen, I must know. The soldiers we fought today, you said they were students and instructors. What would have happened if we had faced your actual combat units?" Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "The soldiers you fought today train the combat units, Commander. They teach them everything they know. What do you think would have happened?" Jartok had no answer for that. "Release our prisoners," Chen said. "Collect yours, and leave this system. If we detect your ships anywhere near human space again, the response will be very different." The transmission ended. Throck and his strike team released the human prisoners an hour later. As the humans walked away, Harrison turned back. "Hey," he called. "For what it's worth, you guys fought well. Good tactics, solid discipline. In a fair fight, it would have been closer." "This was not a fair fight?" Throck asked. Harrison laughed. "You attacked a training facility full of special operations instructors during an active combat exercise. We were literally in the middle of practicing how to defend against this exact scenario. No, this was not a fair fight. This was probably the least fair fight you could have possibly picked." "I see," Throck said quietly. "Yeah," Harrison said. "You really do now, don't you?" 3 days after the battle at Titan 7, Fleet Commander Jartok stood before the Krell High Command in the Great Chamber on the homeworld. He had expected this summons. He had prepared his defense, organized his arguments, and steeled himself for the shame of explaining his failure. What he had not expected was the silence. The 7 members of the High Command sat in their elevated positions, looking down at him with expressions he could not read. They had reviewed his reports. They had seen the combat footage. They had analyzed every aspect of the disastrous attack on training facility Echo 9. Finally, High Commander Vexron spoke. "Fleet Commander Jartok, you attacked what you believed to be a civilian research station. Instead, you attacked a military training facility. You lost 19 fighters, suffered critical damage to 2 destroyers, and lost over 60 warriors. You then negotiated a retreat under threat of complete annihilation. Is this summary accurate?" "It is, High Commander. And yet you stand before us not in chains. Do you know why?" Jartok did not. "No, High Commander. Vexron gestured, and a massive holographic display activated in the center of the chamber. It showed a star map of human-controlled space, with hundreds of data points highlighted. "Because your failure may have saved the Dominion from catastrophic disaster," Vexron said. "Show him." The display zoomed in, focusing on different locations throughout human territory. Military installations, shipyards, fleet bases, training facilities. The numbers were staggering. "After your engagement, we launched a comprehensive intelligence operation," Vexron explained. "We accessed human public databases, intercepted military communications, and analyzed every piece of information we could gather. What we found was sobering." Data scrolled across the displays. Ship counts, troop numbers, industrial capacity, defensive installations. "The humans have been preparing for large-scale warfare for over a century," Vexron continued. "Not because they knew we existed, but because they spent most of their history fighting each other. They understand war at a fundamental level that most species never develop. They have entire academic institutions dedicated to studying combat. They write books about it. They teach it to children. They practice it constantly." Another high commander spoke up. "The facility you attacked processes 2,000 soldiers through advanced combat training every year. They have 12 such facilities. Additionally, they have hundreds of smaller training installations, military academies, and specialized warfare schools. They train more soldiers in a single year than the Dominion has in its entire standing military." Zartok felt the weight of those numbers. "How is that possible?" "They are a single species on a handful of worlds. They are a species that survived multiple global wars on their homeworld alone," Vexron said. "Wars that killed millions of their own kind. They nearly destroyed themselves several times, and each time they rebuilt and grew stronger. They learned from every conflict. They studied every battle. They created entire philosophies around the concept of war." The display shifted to show footage from the battle at Titan 7. Zartok watched human soldiers moving through the facility's corridors with practiced precision. Watched their pilots executing complex maneuvers in perfect coordination. Watched their defensive systems responding to threats with inhuman speed and accuracy. "Those were their students," he said quietly. "Yes, students and instructors. The humans you fought had probably never seen real combat before this engagement. They were academics, teachers, learners, and they defeated a veteran Krell task force." Another member of the High Command leaned forward. "We have modeled various invasion scenarios based on the data we collected. In every simulation, the Dominion loses. Not close defeats, catastrophic losses. The humans have more ships, more soldiers, more industrial capacity, and far superior training. If we had proceeded with our planned invasion, it would have been the end of the Dominion." Zartok absorbed this in silence. Everything the Dominion had built, all their conquests, all their pride, would have been destroyed by a species they had thought weak and unprepared. "What are your orders, High Command?" he finally asked. "The Dominion will not engage in hostilities with humanity," Vexron declared. "We will open diplomatic channels. We will negotiate trade agreements. We will establish our species as peaceful neighbors rather than potential enemies. And the other species in the region, the ones who might also consider humanity a threat? We are already sharing our intelligence with them, quietly, unofficially. We are making it very clear that attacking humanity would be a fatal mistake." Vexron stood from his seat, a gesture of respect that shocked Zartok. "You are to return to your command, Fleet Commander. You will lead our diplomatic mission to Earth. You know these humans now. You have seen what they are capable of. You will help ensure that the Dominion never makes the mistake of underestimating them again." "I am honored, High Commander." "You should be terrified," Vexron said bluntly, "because now you understand what humanity truly is. They are not aggressive conquerors. They are not seeking to expand through force. But they are always, always preparing for war. It is built into their culture at a fundamental level. and that makes them the most dangerous species we have ever encountered. Back at training facility Echo 9, life was slowly returning to normal. Repair crews worked to fix the damage from the battle. Medical teams tended to the wounded. And in a briefing room deep in the facility's command level, Commander Sarah Chen stood before a group of very attentive students. "All right, people, let's review the engagement," she said, bringing up tactical displays on the wall screens. "Overall performance was good, but we made several critical errors that would have been costly against a more prepared enemy." The students, still bandaged and tired from the battle 3 days ago, leaned forward with intense focus. "First, our initial response time was 7 seconds too slow. Lieutenant Morrison, walk us through what happened in the operations center during those first moments." Morrison stood. "Ma'am, we hesitated because we weren't certain if this was part of the exercise or an actual attack. We wasted valuable time confirming the situation." "Correct. And what's the lesson there?" "In combat, treat every threat as real until proven otherwise." "Exactly. 7 seconds doesn't sound like much, but if that had been a coordinated strike by multiple task forces, those 7 seconds could have meant the difference between repelling the attack and losing the facility." "Sergeant Kowalski, how did the ground teams perform?" Anna stood from her seat. "We executed defensive protocols effectively, but our ammunition expenditure was 30% higher than optimal. We were overcorrecting for what we thought was a drill scenario." "Good catch. When you're uncertain about the reality of a situation, stick to standard operating procedures. Don't overcomplicate things." Sarah pulled up footage of the space battle. "Lieutenant Webb, your fighter wing scored 12 kills with 0 friendly losses. That's exceptional. But I noticed something in your approach vectors. Talk me through your decision to engage at close range." Marcus stood. "Ma'am, I assessed that our training fighters were outmatched at long range, so I opted to close distance where pilot skill would be more important than equipment superiority." That was good tactical thinking. It also nearly got Griffin 3 killed when those Krell fighters turned out to be faster than our intelligence suggested. You adapted well, but remember that in real combat, the enemy doesn't always match the specifications in our databases. She let that sink in for a moment, then smiled slightly. "Having said all that, I want you to understand something. You fought an actual military force expecting to find easy prey. Instead, they found elite soldiers who had trained for this exact scenario. You held this facility against superior numbers and superior equipment. You did it because you trained hard, studied seriously, and executed your procedures perfectly. That Krell task force retreated not because we outgunned them, but because we outfought them." She paused, making eye contact with each student. "The galaxy is watching what happened here. We've already received intelligence reports that other species are reassessing their views of humanity. Some are frightened, some are impressed. All of them are talking about how a training facility full of students defeated a veteran alien strike force. You have represented Earth and the Solar Defense Force with distinction. You should be proud." One of the students raised a hand. "Commander, what happens now? Are we going to war with the Krell?" "No. Diplomatic channels have opened. The Krell High Command has disavowed the attack and requested negotiations. It seems they've realized that attacking Earth would be a very bad idea." Sarah's smile widened slightly. "We have confirmed intelligence that they're now sharing combat footage from this engagement with other species as a warning about human military capabilities." "We're their cautionary tale?" another student asked. "We're their nightmare scenario," Sarah corrected. "They attacked what they thought was the weakest possible target and barely escaped with their ships intact. Now they're telling everyone in the region not to make the same mistake." She let them process that for a moment, then clapped her hands together. "All right. Enough self-congratulation. We have 2 weeks left in this exercise cycle, and Command has already scheduled the next scenario. Apparently, they think we need practice dealing with multi-vector assaults. So rest up, review your performance data, and be ready to go again on Monday. Dismissed. The students filed out, talking among themselves. Anna approached Sarah as the room cleared. Think they learned something from all this? Anna asked. I hope so, Sarah said. But more importantly, I think the galaxy learned something. We're not looking for fights. We're not trying to conquer anyone. But we're ready. We're always ready. And now everyone knows it. She looked out through the reinforced window at Titan 7's barren surface, where crews were already rebuilding the damaged sections. You know what the really crazy part is? She said. This facility is barely in the top 20% of our training installations. We have facilities that make Echo 9 look like basic training. I almost feel bad for the Krell. They could have hit somewhere much worse. They could have hit the Arctic Warfare Center, Anna said with a dark grin. Those instructors are absolute maniacs. Or the Deep Space Combat School at Neptune. Those people live for this stuff. They shared a laugh, then Sarah's expression grew serious. But we need to remember something, Anna. We won because we were prepared, because we trained hard, because we never got comfortable or complacent. The moment we stop preparing for the worst is the moment we become vulnerable. Understood, Commander. So what's the next exercise scenario? Sarah pulled up a file on her tablet. Looks like a simulated assault by a technologically superior force using stealth technology and cyber warfare. Should be fun. Fun, Anna repeated dryly. Right. Because the last fun exercise turned into a real battle with actual aliens. Life at Echo 9, Sarah said with a shrug. Never boring, sometimes terrifying, but never boring. Far across the galaxy, in a classified meeting room, representatives from a dozen different species reviewed the same combat footage that the Krell High Command had shared. They watched human soldiers fight with mechanical precision. They analyzed the tactical decisions. They studied the defensive systems. And one by one, each species reached the same conclusion. Humanity was to be approached with respect, caution, and above all, peaceful intentions. Because if this was what their students could do, no one wanted to find out what their actual warriors were capable of.